What is up, guys? Welcome back to the FordTechMakuloco channel. So today we're going to show you how to change your spark plugs on the second generation 3.5 liter Ecoboost engine. So this engine first came out in 2017 and they're using it up until the current day, which is 2022. Now this procedure is only going to apply though to the 2017 through 2021 models. Why? Well, because it looks like, according to my service information, starting in 2022 models, they're using a totally different spark plug that's a gasketed plug instead of a tapered seat, whereas the 17 through 21s, it's a regular tapered seat that Ford has used for years. So this is a new direction for Ford, for sure. And according to the parts catalog, there's a cutoff date of 7/19/21 on there. So there could be a mix in 21 and 22 models, but the way it looks in the official workshop manual from Ford, that's always updated, the 21s are the same as the 17s, and then 22 is definitely different no matter what the date break is on there. So it's interesting, in the 22s they have the gasketed style plug, the torque spec is higher, and then they're using index plugs. So the torque spec on it is critical to index that plug properly, which is the first I'm seeing on a Ford vehicle. So that's interesting. So again, this procedure only applies to the 17 through 21 models. All right, covers a lot of years. Turn this off real quick. So the basics you're gonna need, well, it's pretty basic, okay? This vehicle that we're working on today is a 2019 example vehicle. That has 111,000 miles on it, so we're changing boots. Why not? They're like $8 a piece. Then, of course, new spark plugs. So I use the Ford spark plugs, the Motorcraft ones. They're made by NGK. They're really good spark plugs. And I put a light coating of anti-seize on there. I don't trust the plating on there, so I put a light coating, nothing too thick. You don't want to have it oozing down and causing problems. So when you get your new plugs, you of course want to inspect them top and bottom, make sure none of the porcelain's broken on there, make sure the porcelain is not dropping on there. Come on, baby. And make sure the ground strap on there, of course, is not bent. These come in plastic sleeves to prevent damage. They're pre-gapped at the factory, but you just got to inspect them still, all right? Then, of course, you know, if you don't have a good feel for it, you want to have a torque wrench for sure, a 3/8 torque wrench. The torque spec on these is 133 inch-pounds, okay? And then, of course, I always put a light coating of dielectric grease to the tips of the boots on there before going back in. It seals them up real nice, and then, of course, allows for easy removal later on. So, real basic stuff. So we're going to get right to it. I'm going to plop you up in here, try to give you a good view. And we're going to kind of walk you through it on each side on there. It's all pretty open once you get the engine cover off. Let's go ahead and get to it. All right, here we go. So the first thing we want to do is make sure the engine's cool. So we're working on it in comfort and we don't strip any spark plug threads, okay? So the first thing we're going to do is pull off the appearance cover, 10mm nut there and there. Zing those off, and that'll expose everything. Make sure you don't lose these nuts down in there. Lift up, pull out. All right, now before you get into it too deep at all, you can see everything's kind of exposed right now. It's not too bad. They're really thinking about serviceability here, it seems. But you can see it's a big trap with all these little crevices to trap all kinds of dirt, leaves, all kinds of stuff. So you want to get all that out of there. Get your air wand out of a blow nozzle and get down in there everywhere, and then go around each one of the coils on here to actually clear them out before you start pulling the coils out. All right, here we go. So we're going to walk you through the passenger side first. Then we'll jump over to the driver's side and show you how to do that side. So there's a few different harnesses and components you need to get out of the way, but otherwise they're right there. So we'll go ahead and get off the regulator for high pressure pump on this side. So you want to lift up on the red tang and then squeeze it. And it should come off of there. sometimes you need to pull it all the way off. There we go. There's that one. Now the coils themselves, you can see there's a different style secondary lock on there, which is much easier than the first generation. So just slide it back like that. Real easy, it stays on there. You squeeze it, it comes up and off of there. So once you start getting harnesses and connections off, just simply tuck the wires out of the way so we're clear to work here. Like that. And then you go on to the next one. So I'll do the same thing back here. Push back, okay. Squeeze, squeeze, and we'll wrap the harness out of the way. It's a very easy task on these compared to the other generations out there, the earlier generations. All right, so now you can see all the ignition coils are exposed. So we have cylinders 1, 2, and 3. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get rid of the coils. And we're gonna do that by unbolting the 8mm bolt right here. You can see it. So looks like there's one on each coil. Make sure you go in the right direction. Now all of these coils are exactly the same. They're just mounted differently to, you know, make room for a pump and all that stuff. So you can pull them out and mix them up, no big deal, because they're all the same. Now if you are having a misfire concern, let's say you have a cylinder 1 misfire and you're trying to figure it out, obviously you want to keep the coil and the spark plug and everything separate for the cylinder you're trying to diagnose. For this, we're just doing regular maintenance. All right, so one more time before I actually lift the coil up and off of there, I will blow around it with some compressed air, make sure it's nice and clean. Make sure, it's very important that you take your bolts and you get them out of here. Put them on the bench, out of the way, because you don't want anything dropping down into the spark plug hole and down into the combustion chamber once we pull the plugs. That would be really bad. Especially if you don't know it at first, and then you go to fire the engine later on, and guess what? So again, we'll clean around it. There we go, I brought you in a little closer. So at this point, we can just simply grab the coil and pull up on them. And they're going to be hard to get out. So you may want to try to twist them, but generally it only twists up top here and not down below. Another reason you want to get new boots, especially if your vehicle has some kind of mileage on it. Like this one has 111 on it. And guess what? You know, the boots can get worn, they can get torn, if they get stuck to the plugs, all kinds of stuff. So they're like $8 a piece, might as well change out the boots. So when you're changing out the boots, you simply grab it right here and you twist and separate. Just like that. You know, that's all that will be left exposed on there. And then of course the new ones are all complete and they just go right onto there. So you center the spring in the hole, there you go. Put it in there, wiggle, 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 push it down just like that until it seats all the way around just like that. And it's ready to go once the plugs are changed. We'll go ahead and pull out the remaining coils. Like I said, these are deep down in here, so they can be a pain. It's best to grab them on both sides and with 2 hands and kind of help them up out of there. That one wasn't so bad. Change the boots on these too. Okay, now that all the coils are out on the passenger side here, before we pull the plugs, you want to clean around the spark plug well again. Cleanliness is very important. Remember, once the plug is out, you're opening up the combustion chamber, the internals of the engine, to outside debris. So you want to make sure it's nice and clean. Do this right. Okay, so the spark plug socket size is 5/8. So you need a 5/8 spark plug socket. Preferably something like this where it has a ball on there, universal. So it's a swivel spark plug socket, all right? And the set I linked to down below with the spark plugs and the boots and everything you need for this job, this set that I linked to actually has a couple different sizes in it. So this one's like 4 or 5 inches, I believe. It's good for the back, whereas it also comes with a longer extension like this, so you get it right on there. So again, we're working on a cool engine, and you just brake torque on them, and they shouldn't stick or nothing like that. You may notice some screeching as it comes out, you know, because it's a little dry. Again, that's why I don't totally rely on the platinum, or not platinum, on the plating of the threads on here. I still use a little bit of anti-seize, very small amount. So for me personally, once the plug is loose on there, I will use a ratchet like this, pull it out, nice and slow, but it's easier on you, and they ain't gonna damage anything, and it'll come up and out of there, just like that, all right? So let's take a look at this one. Hopefully there's enough lighting here. So you can see it's not so bad on there. I believe these are original for 112,000 miles or so. The gap is definitely big, so he's gonna notice an increase in fuel economy and power for sure once all 6 of these are replaced. But again, generally on an Ecoboost engine, 80 to 100,000 miles, and you'll be safe no matter what, all right? So the safest way to do this is to take out one plug at a time. So take it out and put the new one in. Then move on to the next cylinder. Take it out, put it in. You don't want multiple cylinders opened up here for stuff to fall into them. Just the one you're working on, that's it. Now the one other thing that I do is I will stick the air wand, if you have it, all the way down into the cylinder, past the threads, into the actual combustion chamber, and I will blow out the combustion chamber and the threads of the spark plug in the head here. And that's why. Had a lot of guys complain to me about, you know, introducing air into the cylinder once the spark plug is out, but as you can see, it's a good idea to get everything out of there. And the idea is to stick the air wand all the way down in the combustion chamber, then introduce that air, so there's just positive pressure in there, blowing everything out. Nothing's actually being drawn into there. And I've been doing it for years, no problem. It's the way to do it, make sure everything's perfectly clean in there. So we'll take our spark plug socket and our new spark plug, okay, and we'll put it down in there, and we'll turn it in by hand. If you're not sure if you're threading it in properly, well, just look at this. You should be able to thread it all the way down to the seat by hand. There's a lot of threads on here. So you'll be able to tell if it's threading in properly or not. So now it's pretty close to the seat. I'll bust the wrench out. There it is. We hit the seat. So what I do at this point, now that we've hit the seat, dead stop at the seat, you'll feel it. You get dead stop. Oh, it hit the bottom. It's dead stop. At that point, you can hold it. Okay, you're gonna hold the pivot point right here, which is the extension. Okay, so you're not side loading it. You want to stabilize it, and then you're gonna pull and tighten it. And I go another, 8th turn or so. You'll feel it. It'll go from a dead stop to real snug, where it just will not move anymore. That's how I do it. I do spark plugs by feel, but in this case, again, if you're not sure, and this is your first time, and you're worried, you can use a torque wrench on there. Rent one, buy one, whatever. You can see we achieve torque on there. So we're at torque, if not past torque. I like to do it by feel, especially when it comes to spark plugs. But then again, I've been doing this for 20 some years and I have a really good feel for it. So that one's in, set, and we can just jump on to the next one and the next one, all right? So let's kind of let you guys watch this procedure. And in she goes. It's a very simple procedure on this engine. There's not much in the way at all. What's nice about these extensions, these spark plug sockets with extensions, wobble socket extensions, is it's a knurled area right here, so you can really turn it in by hand on there and get that good feel. That's the proper way to put a spark plug in, is by hand, so you have a proper feel. The biggest thing is when you're tightening up here, you got your wrench on here, okay? You don't want to be side loading it like crazy, all right? Because it can crack the porcelain. Now with these swivel sockets and extensions, you eliminate some of that potential for damage, because you can see it just kind of swivels. It doesn't actually side load the spark plug itself, which is nice. But if you're using a straight extension on there, you got to make sure you stay in the center. Hold it as you're tightening it so you don't side load the new spark plug. That's where a lot of inexperienced DIYers, I guess you can call them, fail. They'll over tighten them, and while they're trying to over tighten them, they'll side load them. And the porcelain's very brittle, as you can imagine. So that one's good. Again, I like to do them by feel, but then again, I have that feel for it. So this back one, yeah, you gotta reach a little bit more to get back in here, but otherwise, standard procedure. I'm even using the long one back here, the long extension on there. There it is. And again, like I said, I'm linking to everything down below, so I'm not leaving you guys in the dark. Everything I'm using, spark plug part numbers, torque specs, everything will be down below in the video description, so you guys have a good reference. I think I'm going slow enough even so we could even, you know, even change spark plugs together basically in real time. Again, right there I hit it. Dead stop. Give it a little bit more. Good to go. Alright, so now all three of these are changed out. Good to go, sealed up, installed, tightened down, torqued down, and we're ready to put the coils back in. Okay, so going back together with the original ignition coil and new coil boots, I'll put a slight dab of dielectric grease on there in the very tip. And once you start working it onto the spark plug, you kind of twist a little bit and it will disperse it onto there. Give it a little wiggle and they should fit nice and tight like that. Like I said before, all the coils are the same. They just mount up a little bit differently depending on the configuration. So we'll get them all the way on here. And lined up. Get it all the way on there, like that. start threading in the hold down bolt by hand. And the reason why I thread everything by hand, at least at first, is because I want to make sure it's going in properly. And that way I have no cross threading issues. After that, I just zing them down until they're snug. And the same thing if you're doing it by hand. Just use a little 1/4 inch ratchet and snug them down. You know, something like this with the least amount of leverage. Snug. Make sure they're good to go. Good. And good. Okay, we're good there. Now let's do our connections here. So we'll go ahead and get them off. Where's the other one at? There. So on this side we have number 3 ignition coil, and then we'll slide up the lock, and the same thing right here for number 2. You see it right here, all the way on till it clicks. Slide up the lock, and then over here on number 1 we have an ignition coil again until it clicks. Slide the lock, and then we have the regulator on the high pressure pump until it clicks. Slide the lock. Once it's all back together, take 2 seconds, quick visual. Everything's back on, everything's back to normal, and we can move on to the driver's side. Pretty easy so far, right guys? All right, here we go on the driver's side now. So same thing, we're gonna get our air wand out, clean the valve cover area, and especially around the coils. All right, so you can see on this side, it's gonna be a little more wobbly, but you can see on this side, it's the same thing, it's even more exposed. So we'll pop all the secondary locks on the coils, and then we'll get those out of the way. Same thing as the other side. This front one here, you have a PCV line kind of blocking it. So they tell you to just disconnect this right here and everything, but as long as nothing over here is too corroded or seized, I recommend just releasing this lock on here and wiggling up on it. Seems everything is super tight nowadays, the O-rings and everything, for emissions. So you may find yours is just too tight like that. I don't recommend trying to pry this off of here. Honestly, there's plenty of room just to get past here. So if yours is stuck on there big time like mine, don't worry about it. Alright, so we're going to leave the PCV line and sensor on there, flow sensor. On this side it's easier to get a 3-inch extension and a standard 8mm, a little more room. Get over this stuff. Everything's pretty easy to get to on these. As long as nothing's sticking or acting weird or anything like that, it's a pretty easy job overall. Get our bolts out of here, and then we'll start working on the coils. Not so bad, that one. Not so bad, huh? Let's see if this one's nice and easy. See, once you unbolt it, you know, of course you're pulling it up and out of here, and the boot is flexible, so you can come up past it like that. And we'll be able to get a straight shot on here with our spark plug socket and extension too. So, you know, they tell you to pull this out of the way, but in reality it can cause you a lot of frustration. So if yours is stuck, leave it on there. So I'll go to the bench, same thing, change the boots, clean up the coil a little bit, and put a little bit of dielectric grease on the end of the new boot. Now that we're exposed, we'll clean it once again like the other side. clean, we're ready to go. Right torque on them. You hear that? Not a good sound you want to hear. Because the plug is too dry. That's why I put the smallest amount of anti-seize on there. It's not going to hurt if you put a very small, thin layer on there. Great torque on all these, and then they're ready to zing out. Power tools can help you be much more efficient in the shop setting if you know how to use them. You can use them safely, it's not going to damage anything. So we're pulling it right up and past there. And we can look at it. What's at the other side? Looks like there's getting a buildup of ash on there almost. It's a good thing we're changing them. Again, we'll clear it out all the way down in there. See this swivel socket right here? This, fix my light quick. This swivel socket like this comes in handy in a situation like this where you're off to the side just a little bit because that flow sensor's there. You can still turn it in and make sure we're not cross-threading. If I had a straight socket right now, it might be, you know, a little off. It's nice to have. Not totally necessary, but it's nice to have. Okay, we hit. I do it all by feel. Go on to the next one, and you can see it's all pretty exposed over here. Now the reason why I'm going through on each one here and doing a complete walkthrough is because a lot of people complain, I only showed the easy ones, or I only showed these, or I only showed that. Well, here I am. If you want a complete walkthrough, you got it. Once you get in here and you see it for yourself, though, you start pulling things apart, you're gonna see it's really actually pretty easy. Just a few precautions while you're doing it. Otherwise, it's a real simple, run-of-the-mill process. Again, make sure that extension is straight as possible when you're tightening. One after another. This is how servicing vehicles should be, nice and easy. So on this vehicle, I was able to use this long extension on all of them. Whereas other vehicles with the heater hoses and stuff like that being in the way, previous generations, it's a little more crowded in here, you know. So this is really nice. Okay, here we go. Check the rest real quick. That's just me. New boots. Original coils. A little dielectric grease. You can sneak these back in. And these boots do fit snug. Real snug. Which is nice, it keeps water and everything else out of there. Throw the bolts back in. These first two are a little harder to get in there with your bolts. It's really important to make sure that you thread them by hand. Make sure everything's okay. There we go. Like I said, I just snug these down. Don't forget connections. Click and lock. Click and lock. And then what happened to this other one? Tucked it way out of the way apparently. So you click and lock. Good to go, good to go, good to go. We never touch this, so we're good there. So at this point, everything is back together on here on both sides. Very simple process, one of the easiest spark plug jobs I've ever done. So if you guys are thinking about doing this, I would say go for it. Get the few basic tools on hand, get the proper spark plugs, and go for it. It's a pretty easy job overall. That's all for now. I'll see you guys next time.